Hi, my name is June with Common Ground, and today we are back and we are talking about a phrase that is mentioned so much through the Bible, and that is remember me. The request is so simple, but it carries so much weight. Whether we're remembering the covenant that God made not to flood the earth, or Jesus telling his disciples to remember him at the Last Supper, the remember me term is mentioned quite often in the Bible, and we're going to get into it, but first let's go ahead and get into our song of the day. Today's song of the day is La La Love by Claudia Isaki. This is one of my favorite gospel songs. It sounds so different, but it's so calming, and the words are just so soothing. So I'm not really familiar with this artist. I found her through another Bible study group I'm in. They shared a playlist and this was on the song, and it really caught my attention. So I really hope that you like it as well. Now let's get into our clip of the day.
Girl, look at this. Girl, look at this. Girl, look at this. Girl, look at this. Did you see this?
The reason why I chose this clip is because we all had to start somewhere. When I first started reading the Bible, y'all, I could not read it for more than probably about 5 to 10 minutes. I would instantly go to sleep. But now I could read the Bible for hours on hours. So if you are at that phase where you're going to sleep, just start off with a verse a day. I know a lot of people like to start off in Proverbs. It don't matter where you go. I like to look up the sins that I be committing so I can know what Jesus said about them. I find it more interesting. But no matter where you are, how much you are reading, just keep trying to do more. Go from one verse to one chapter and just keep going. And even if you had to listen to the Bible on like the Bible app or something like that, just do what you had to do and start remembering these verses so you can apply them.
And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for.
There's one specific remembrance that I got a revelation from, and I wanted to discuss it today. A few months ago, I was reading my Bible, and I can't remember if I was reading 2 Kings or Isaiah, but I came across the story of Hezekiah. And the reason why I can't remember which one is, if you don't know, a lot of stories in the Bible are repeated. Just one chapter or one book may give more details than the other book. So I can't remember what I was reading. However, at this time, I was feeling forgotten by God, and I didn't understand why this story stuck out to me so much. Let me add some context to who Hezekiah was. His story takes place in 2 Kings chapter 18 through 20. He was a king of Jerusalem for 29 years, and he lived to please God. He trusted God. He was faithful, and during his reign, he made it his mission to tear down any other god that people were worshiping at that time. He ended up falling ill, and the prophet Isaiah comes to him and was like, the Lord said, get your affairs in order. You about to die. You're not gonna recover. And so Hezekiah breaks down crying and praying, and during this time he asked the Lord to remember him. And he's like, I've been faithful. I haven't been serving no other gods. I've only pleased you, God. And before the prophet Isaiah could leave, the Lord gives him another message to tell Hezekiah. And the Lord tells Hezekiah, I've heard your prayers, I've seen your cries. I'm gonna heal you in 3 days, and I'm going to add 15 years to your life. And there's a few other things that God told him, but I want to stop here. Because after reading this story, I began to ask God, remember me? Like, I've been being faithful to you. I've been on this righteous path. I don't know exactly what I need you to do, but whatever it is, I want you to have grace for me, and I want you to remember my name and remember my faithfulness and my righteousness and my obedience the next time you got a blessing. And God gave me an answer that I was not ready for, y'all. God said, do you remember me? And at first I was like, what? Like, that's not the answer I was expecting. Like, did you answer my question? But he did. And I started to meditate on what God told me, and I began to realize this. I was feeling forgotten based off of my circumstances in front of me at that time. It didn't look like God was remembering me, but it was like God told me to remember him. So I started to think of all the things he did for me in my life that I can go back and think back to when God made a way out of no way, when I was feeling hopeless and doubtful. And it caused me to open up my notes app, and I basically began to write about every time God has did anything for me, big or small, whether I was living righteous or not. And I began to write it down, and I remembered. God told me to creating this list has helped me in so many ways, and it has really showed me not to worry and be anxious, because I know everything is going to work out for my good. And not only do I have a Bible verse to back that up, I also have a track record of personal instances where God has helped me out. Even when it may have felt a little shaky, he still came through. And my life has not been easy at all. It's been far from easy, but every time God has been so faithful to me, even when I was not faithful for him. And because I have this personal track record of testimonies, I can see God's character. So when it comes to analyzing Bible verses, he'll never leave you or forsake you. I understood those personally. When I was younger, I thought my testimony would be just one story about how I found my way back to God. But that's not true. My testimony is composed of small stories that create a larger picture, and it allows me to remember the things that God has done for me so I can help myself and other people. Now I'm able to trust God more. Although I may not understand what's going on, I know that he's going to lead me and guide me into the best direction as long as I put him first. When you learn how to trust God, you learn how to take risks. You learn how to walk in your purpose. And you know that he's not going to leave you or forsake you. You're not going to fail. I didn't think I could do these Bible studies because I'm very nervous and I'm very shy in front of other people, even on camera. So I was and I'm not a good public speaker. And so I was very hesitant to do this, but I know what God told me to do, and I know he has a purpose and a plan. And when I think about that, it diminished my feelings, and it allows me to increase him in my life, because I have a personal track record where he's told me to do things that may have not made sense in the past, but it ended up it worked out for my good. And I found that I was able to accomplish them with his help. And being able to trust God has led to my obedience. So now when he tells me something, I don't have to make sense of it. I can look at his track record and know he's not going to tell me to do something that is not for me. And so that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it does allow me to trust him. And that's where your trust has to come in when it comes time to your obedience. Now that I'm feeling doubtful, I go back and reread my list, and I think about all the things I felt when I was going through specific hurdles or ups and downs where I didn't know what God was doing. And I am consistently reminded that God is working on my behalf. I may not be able to see what he's doing, but I know that he's working in the background, and I know one day it's going to make sense. It may not make sense today. It may not make sense tomorrow, but I know in the end it will. And because I understand his character now, I'm able to deepen my intimacy and my worship in him. I'm able to worship him passionately when I think about all the things he's done. And there's been so much stuff that my mind has forgotten, pushed out because I'm dealing with the next thing. But when you actually go back and write down, I'm talking from childhood to today, big or small, write it down and reflect on it. it helps you. And when you begin to think about, if you deal with anxiety, start to think about the feelings and the thoughts that was going through your head in this time, and it didn't happen. God was a way maker. God made a way out of no way. It's going to help you worship him. It's going to help you push out those thoughts of anxiety, worry, and all those things. So if that's something that you struggle with, make a list and write down all the blessings God has did for you, and allow that to be a testimony, what is a part of your testimony, and use your testimony to talk to yourself and to let you remember who God is. This has helped me begin to be content and grateful with where God has me. Although I may not be where I want to be, I know that I'm much further than where I was, but I'm where God needs me to be. And it may sound cliche, but once you make your list, you're going to understand exactly what I'm talking about. By reliving these moments, it allowed me to see that God had been speaking to me. I just didn't recognize his voice. So by being able to really reflect on these instances, I can reflect on, the times when he spoke to me and I didn't understand, and I was able to see how he had been speaking to me in the past, and so I can correct it in the future. So I would challenge you to make your own list of every time God has gotten you through something, every time God has blessed you, every time that you have realized God remembered you, and consistently add to it. Anytime that you feel doubtful, fearful, forgotten, or anxious, even depressed, refer back to this list. Because if you're feeling this way, it's because you have forgotten God, and you got to remember him. This is not something that I was able to do in one day or sitting. Again, I'm still continuously doing it. I do it every time a thought popped up in my head. It was a few weeks ago. I ran out of gas and I called an Uber. The Uber driver literally stopped his shift, and he drove me to the gas station, which was my ride. I didn't realize I didn't make a ride back to my car. He actually waited for me to buy a gas can, go and fill up my car, and go back to my car. And he pumped the gas for me because I couldn't figure out how to work a gas can. But he really helped me, and God could have sent anybody. He sent him, so that went on the list. It was some times when I had got positions and promoted, and I've gotten raises. I've gotten just so much stuff that I did not deserve. Layoffs might have come to my job. I was not laid off. I remember one time I wasn't even looking forward to working a different shift, but the shift that I actually wanted once I started was no longer available. But one of the women working that shift ended up getting pregnant, and she had to go on maternity leave, so I was able to get the shift that I wanted. Like, it's just been so many times, like, God has really looked out for me. And it all worked together, you guys. Even during my Christian journey, or just finding my way back to God, I did not want to go to church, and I was finna go home and just be like, I'm not going to church. I'm spiritual and all this stuff, not religious. And I was gonna do that, and because I was scared to honestly go to church by myself. And this lady randomly called me one day, and she is like, can you promise me that you're gonna go to church for 4 Sundays, so just for 1 month? And I ended up doing it, and now I go to church all the time. And so had it not been for that lady calling me and even planting that seed in my head, I just would have been at home like, yeah, I go to church every few months or something like that. So it's been so many people that God has put in my way, and they have been nothing but blessings, and it's so many doors that he has closed that I could not be more grateful for. It's been like I wanted to buy a Kia, for instance, and when I was car hunting, all the cars I liked are currently experiencing so many problems, so many recalls, that people are stealing them, and God really guided me to my car, just different things. So make your list and make it as detailed as you want to be, but every time you remember a blessing from God, record it. And when you are feeling down, go back to it and read it. So when you guys are feeling lost, doubtful, any negative feeling that God did not place in your heart, ask God to remember you, but also make sure that you are remembering God. And
Read, write, think, pray, meditate.
to meditate on this verse, and it came from Psalms 106, chapter 106, verse 4, and it says, "Remember me, Lord, when you show favor to your people. Come near and rescue me." And really meditate on this week. If you want to journal about it, but really think about it. When you have any negative feelings or a worrisome mind, you start feeling weary, go ahead and recite this and remember God. And that's all I have for you guys today. If you guys have a time that God remembered you that you want to place in the comments, place it below so that people can remember how faithful God is. And you guys be blessed and have a nice day.